Alright guys, so good night and welcome back to the channel. And we want to look at something a little bit different tonight. We want to look at tips for assisting your students at home or assisting your child at home during this coronavirus pandemic case that we have, where we know our students are away from school. So I thought that as an educator myself, I could offer a couple tips that can help you at home with your child. Knowing that this Monday, and we're looking at the 7th September 2020, for us here in Belize, the primary and preschool students receive their packages at home, whether the teacher is assisting, whether it be online or with packaging. For the secondary school, we know that we will attempt an online kind of scenario to have the students learn from home. So I want to give you guys 5 tips that I think would be essential to help you as parents in assisting your students at home. So it's not really to say assisting you with homeschooling, but having more of a tips per se in assisting parents, or showing parents or giving you tips on how to help your child during these times. Tip number 1, and this is very important, you want to be able to establish some sort of schedule. Now keep in mind that for the last 5 months or 6 months the students were out of the classroom, so they were just at home while we're trying to figure out this entire pandemic scenario and what was going on. So keeping that in mind now, it means that we'll have to kind of mold our child back or mold our students back into some sort of schedule. So what do I mean? So instead of leaving them now to go to bed late at night and then wake up later on during the day, you want to ensure that you have them in bed early so that they're well rested. And say, for example, maybe on Monday, you want to get them up bright and early, let's say about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So you get them back into that schooling scenario that we were used to. Give them the healthy breakfast in the morning, and then of course try to start doing some of the actual schoolwork at least by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Now, what we want to be careful of is that we want to ensure that we have different time spaces that we're issuing. So say, for example, they were going to a school and they were used to having recess, let's say at 10:30, thereabout. So you want to, and you can be a little bit more flexible with this based on their performance, because remember that some child will work faster than the other. So if they were used to a 10:30 break and they started out at 8:30, then you can use that same time schedule that was given by your school, because I know that the packages that will be issued will have in for the different subjects, right? Keep in mind also that you want to set the different times per subject. Now remember that the teacher is not at home to assist you with this, and so they do rely on you as a parent to get the time scheduling going for your child. So establish that time schedule, set up a space and a time for learning. So what I mean is that you want to create a space for your child where it is very quiet, first of all, where they won't get distracted. So you wouldn't necessarily set up a table or a chair for them or a working space for them near a window where they're looking outside and people are passing by, right? So you want a designated area that is not too hot also, right? You wouldn't want to set them up in front of the television. That's a no-no, right? Because then they'll be doing their work and they'll be looking up at the television every so often, especially if their favorite show is on. So ensure that the location that you choose, that there is minimal distraction, right? Of course, also keep in mind, and this is just to help you kids out, keep in mind that because they're getting back into the school mode, although it's at home, you have to look at, especially for the children who do chores at home, you have to now reschedule that chore. And so you can't be shouting after them and say, hey, you need to come and empty the garbage now because I need it now, you know. Ensure that you give them the required time to get back into that school mode. Remember, we're getting back into school mode, but we're doing it at home. Tip number 2, know your child, right? And by that I mean that if your child, there are children who are just independent learners. They will learn by themselves. They can pick up a book and read, and they can read an article. They can read a small storybook and understand the story. They can look at a YouTube video and understand what's going on. So know what type of child or know what type of learner your child is, right? So you will know as a parent how to pace that work. And of course, you can always get advice from the teachers also who is giving the work, or the teachers who are giving those work. Get advice from them on how to actually pace the work at a pace that your child can actually learn. Apart from that, another part to knowing your child is that there are children who learn better in a group setting. Now, not because you're at home with your child means that you can't have a group setting. Now, what do I mean? Now, we are used to, as parents, as teachers, right? We are used to using WhatsApp and Zoom and Jitsi and all of these nice fancy software to video conference. You can, as parents, talk to the other parents who are in your same grouping. So, for example, if I have a daughter in standard 2 and I have another parent with some child in standard 2, I can then consult with that parent and say, you know what, the kids are going to have a reading activity at, let's say, 11 o'clock, right? Why don't we set up a video conferencing where they can see each other and then they take turns on reading different parts of that paragraph, right? Make sense? So you're sharing, you're still having that group conferencing, just that every child is in their home. Of course, this will work for the kids who have access to the internet or who have access to that network for sharing or video conferencing, or whose parents have access to phones, right? So unfortunately, if you don't have access to internet at home or access to the phone, then you might be in a little bit of a grip here. But keep in mind that knowing your child also means that your child can be very resourceful, and you can assist with that, right? In giving them the resource that they needed, or that they need, sorry. Tip number 3. Your child can get assistance from other siblings who are in home, who are also going to school. So, as an example, if you have a child in high school and you have a child in primary school, it means that the child who is in high school now, because they have a month, I'll call it a month grace period, that child who is in high school now can assist that younger child with their work. Now, this is where you have to tell them that you're not going to do the work for the child, you know. You're going to help your little brother or your little sister to learn the material, and they'll have to have a lot of patience. Believe me, this will be a trying time for them as they become teachers, and as you also, the parent at home, become teachers, right? And you assist us in getting the work and getting the child to understand some of the materials that we want to get across to them. So again, get help from the other siblings who are in the house, and also remember that we now live in a connected world, and I can say we live in a connected country. For us, especially for the students in town, there is no problem for you to get on the phone and call the teacher, you know, and say, teacher, I feel like I just want to get how do I explain this to my son or to my daughter so that the message can get across to them. And the teachers will give you a tip. I'm sure that all our teachers are willing, they're able to, and they're well qualified to assist you with getting your child to learn. We're at tip number 4. Tip number 4, pace yourself. Pace yourself. And this is probably one of the most important tips. Now, remember that when you receive this package come Monday, right, you're going to get a package for the week. Don't look at it and try to have the child do the entire thing for that day. Remember, the package is for the week, and so it is important, like what I mentioned in tip number 1, that you pace your child in terms of how much work they accomplish for the day, keeping in mind that you're doing, let's say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes per day in mathematics, 30, 40 minutes in English language, 30, 40 minutes in some sort of science, right? And so pace how much work is given, so that you know that by Friday you're ready to submit that file and get feedback from the teacher who is checking that file. And of course, be honest, right? Don't do the work for your child. You're doing them a disservice. Ensure that they learn it. If you feel like the content that you're trying to push in, that you're trying to push through, you're just not getting it, the child is not understanding it, then make a note of that so that you can tell the teacher, you know what, I really don't think my child understood the concept that you were trying to get across. Can you please give me some assistance or give me some other sort of resource, because I'm out of ideas. I'm sure, again, the teacher will assist in something like that. Tip number 5, and this is very important tip: try not to stress. And that's one of the hardest things to tell parents: try not to stress. Now imagine I don't speak Spanish, and my son or my daughter comes home with a Spanish, they get a Spanish assignment or Spanish work, and I have to help them out, and I know nothing about Spanish, and I'm here just stressing out trying to learn. Remember that as a parent, we don't know everything, but the kids, they already have an idea of what is going on, and so we just have to try to be as resourceful as possible for them, right? Meaning that, again, it goes back to some of the other tip I mentioned earlier. Don't be afraid to consult with other parents if you're having trouble. Don't be afraid to consult with the teachers if you're having trouble, right? So again, try not to overstress this thing. Remember that this will be something new for us, something new for you, something new for your child. And remember that take little notes so that you can inform the teacher whether or not the child is making progress. And the teacher, of course, will give you feedback based on the work. But again, be honest in the work that is submitted, and offer as much assistance as possible. Now, there are parents who work throughout the day, and so maybe the baby or the child is left with some older sibling or with the babysitter, and of course you might have some problems there in terms of communication and so forth. And so it means then that you might have to schedule some of the activity to take place in the evening. So again, look at the scheduling, look at what works for you, and this is the time that parents now get to step up and push their kids to another level, right? So you could level up like Super Mario. But again, we want to assist as much as possible. We want to communicate as much as possible. We want to utilize the technology as much as possible. So don't think that just because you're getting a package of paper that the child will be reading through and looking at, that you can't utilize technology. Get on the phone, communicate, have group meetings, have parent meeting, have teachers meeting to ensure that learning takes place. This is just another form of learning. It's a way for us to try to get through this particular situation. And of course, it's a good change if we can teach children how to be resourceful and how to be able to find information on their own and use that information meaningfully. Then we would have accomplished a lot, right? And we would have leveled up. So that's my 5 tips for you in terms of how you assist your students with dealing with schoolwork at home. So number 1, establish a schedule. Number 2, know your child so you can determine what type of learners they are, and don't be afraid to share in group work using the technology. Tip number 3 was to ensure that the older siblings who are at home can assist, or anybody who can assist at home helps that child. Number 4 is to pace yourself and pace the child to make sure that they're just receiving. Don't overwhelm them with information all in one day, or give them the package and tell them, oh, please, you have to do this entire package today because I'll be busy on Thursday. No, make sure that you pace them and that they adjust to the new time schedule that you will be setting. And tip number 5, again, try not to stress too much. And of course, seek assistance from the teacher and from the other parents in your child particular learning space. So like always, guys, I hope you like this video. If you have a comment, please leave some comments below. Try to share some ideas with some other parents in how we can assist now with the homeschooling effort that we're trying here in Belize. And like always, go geek yourself.